All right, so Matt, yesterday I was out washing my truck with Michael, and after about 10 or 15 minutes, he looked at me and he said, "Why can't you just use a sponge?" Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Graveyard. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Adam.
And my name's Matt.
Now, pull up a tombstone or settle into your casket and get comfortable because this is Graveyard Tales. All right, everybody, here we are again. Matt, how you doing tonight, brother?
I'm all right. My shoulder's hurting.
I feel you, man. I feel you. We need to have a
It's like, I don't usually bitch when we come on the show, but I'm like, man, my shoulder's hurting.
yeah. We need to have a Graveyard Tales like massage day where you and I go to a spa together and film it.
Yeah, I'm game there. I thought I don't know if I want to rub your back.
No, I'm definitely not rubbing your back, but because I'll tell you, my massages don't end like most massages do. So
I don't want to know.
No, you don't. So I'm not massaging. I just meant you and I could go to the spa, and then we could have somebody record it.
Yeah, Graveyard Tales Spa Day.
Yeah.
Get a massage, have, sit in the sauna, get our toes done. It'd be great.
Cucumber slices on our eyes. And if we do that, we'll put it up on Patreon.
The Skull Mike logo will have cucumbers on its eyes.
I like that. That's a good idea. But before we get into it, we want to say go check out the Podbelly Network at podbelly.com. You can find a list of shows that we're happy to be associated with, and you can find some tips and tricks on podcasting if you're into such things. Also, while you're on the internet, go over and support our sponsors. Sponsors are kind of starting to come back for us now, so it's great. Go over there, go, look in our show notes, find you the link to go to their website, use our vanity code, get you something cool with our sponsors' links. Also, go to patreon.com/Graveyard Tales, sign up to become a patron. We've got multiple different levels. Everybody gets a bonus episode a week, unless something crazy happens, and then we try to make it up to you. But every week we try to put out a bonus episode, huge back catalog of bonus episodes. Our $5 and $10, they get audio and video versions of the ad-free episodes for our show. And our $10 a month, they also get our newest show, Side Quest, that we do where nothing like Graveyard Tales. It's just me and Matt having fun, joking with each other, trying to make the other one laugh. It's blue, I would say, is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
It's not like Graveyard Tales where we censor ourselves on the fly so that we don't cuss. We cuss on that one. So, adults only, preferably, unless you don't care if your kids listen to it. But $10 a month, you can get a whole new show from me and Matt.
Yeah. Think of it as like an after party.
Yeah, there you go.
We do it when we're done doing the main show. So sometimes we're a little slap happy. And we get off on tangents that are really bizarre, but check it out.
Yep. So Matt, that's all I've got for the housekeeping and all that stuff. So why don't you tell us, what are we talking about tonight, brother?
Okay. So tonight we've got another cryptid that we're going to discuss. And I guess this one is more of a cryptid variant, that I personally wasn't aware of. I knew that there were Bigfoot sightings in Alaska.
Right.
I did not realize that there was a different type of Bigfoot, or at least it is thought to be a different type of Bigfoot.
Right.
In Alaska, especially around the Aleutian Islands. This one, sometimes known as the Alaskan Bigfoot, it is it's a little more aggressive.
Yep.
At least, according to some. And it has a very unique backstory because of, the native North Americans that settled that area have, a lot of folklore about this creature.
Right.
So, we can tie in modern day Bigfoot sightings with Native American folklore from, the Pacific Northwest, and up around, just south of New England, in those areas. We can make connections there, but I don't know that we've ever made one that is like, this is where it came from, and this is really where this legend comes from.
Yeah.
So, everything's different. Alaska is not like the continental U.S. It's
right.
It's a different part of the world. It's a state for sure, but it's, things are a little bit different up there. The geography is different. Everything is different.
Second to last state that was added. So
right. And, it's so much bigger, and, like the climate is different there. Everything, it just, so why wouldn't their Bigfoot be a little different?
Right.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the history, of Alaska and how it was settled, how it became a state, because that is going to play into the people that settled that area and where this legend comes from.
Right. So as we always say, go check our sources down at the bottom of the show notes. You can find where we found all the information, and you can keep going, because as always, there's a buttload of it out there, and I'm not going to be able to cover all of it. And same with Matt's stuff. There's a buttload. So if you want to keep going, if it interests you, if you say, hey, I am really interested in the natives from Alaska, and you didn't cover as much as I thought you would, well, I got it in the show notes. Go down there, click the sources, keep going. Now, the name Alaska is derived from the Aleut word Alaska, which means great land. And I can almost guarantee I didn't pronounce that right, but it's not a word that I have ever read before until we started doing this.
I never have either.
Yeah, until we started doing this research.
I never thought about it, yeah.
You'll have to give me a little grace on this. When I have not read a word before, I don't know how to say it. That's weird, huh? So the state motto of Alaska is, good God, it's cold. No, that's not it. That's not it.
Why is it so dark?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the state motto is north to the future.
Yeah.
Now,
north to Alaska. You know that song?
I don't.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you got to look it up.
Okay. I'll look it up when we're done here.
It's a great
song. I don't know how I didn't come across it doing research. I came across everything else having to do with Alaska.
It's an old song, but it's a good one.
The motto makes sense for people in like the continental United States saying, hey, we're going north to our future in Alaska. But once you're in Alaska, don't keep going further north, because there is no future that high up. It's cold. You're going to die.
Yeah.
So now, as Matt said, Alaska is huge. And coming from a Texan, that's saying something, because Alaska is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, it's big expanses of land and everything. Now, it has about 586,412 square miles, which that's about 365 million acres. So wouldn't you love to have land like 365 million acres? I would love just have a house right in the middle of it, and then no neighbors.
Hey,
ever.
There's people up there like that.
Yeah. Yep.
They've got their house, they've got a snowcat, and that's that they have at it.
Besides the cold, that sounds amazing.
It's like I would love it if I didn't have to be cold.
Yep. If I can have that in Texas where I'm acclimated to the temperature, that would be great. Now, Alaska is the largest state in the Union, and it's 1/5 the size of the lower 48 states.
Yep.
Think about that.
It's big.
That means there is about 91 square miles per person in Alaska.
That's unbelievable.
Isn't that amazing?
I mean, when you look, you realize, Alaska is really big, and it's not populated just all across the whole state.
Right.
But when you look at a statistic like that, you're kind of like, wow.
Yeah, you could have your own plot of land being 91 square miles. That would be incredible. Incredible. But that just gives you an idea of how unpopulated Alaska really is.
Yeah.
If you were to spread the people out, it has populous cities, which we'll talk about, but the majority of it is unpopulated. So keep that in mind when we're talking about a species of Bigfoot that comes from Alaska. Highly probable it could go unseen. But anyway, from east to west, Alaska is 2,400 miles, and from north to south, it's 1,420. It has 6,640 miles of coastline. Now, if you included the islands, like the Aleutian Islands and all that stuff, it has 33,904 miles of shoreline.
Yeah.
That's a lot of shoreline. Now, Alaska has 19 mountain peaks that reach over 14,000 feet high. Which, I mean, okay, these statistics, especially coming from a guy who lives in Texas, where it's so flat you can watch your dog run away from home for a week. Having 19 mountains that are higher than 14,000 feet is crazy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, look at it. And Adam knows from flat. I mean, he lived here for a long time, and there ain't nothing flat about Tennessee at all.
Nope.
And, you go to Texas, and it's like, I used to tell people, I went to Lubbock, and I'm like, man, I didn't realize Lubbock was this big. And they said, that's Dallas.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You're seeing downtown Dallas. And it is funny because if you're driving down 190, you can see, if you look out, you can see the cities, the downtowns.
Yeah.
Because you go, okay, there's Dallas. Oh, wait, there's Richardson over there. There's Plano. Yeah. And you can see because of the big buildings, and then there's just big expanse of nothing, and then another set of big buildings. I love it. It's great. But 17 of the United States' 20 highest mountain peaks are in Alaska. The United States' highest peak is Mount McKinley, which is in Alaska, and it sits at 20,320 feet high.
Yep. So you kind of see where this is leading.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of people, a heck of a lot of land, really tall mountains, a lot of places for a creature like Bigfoot to go undetected.
Yep. This is another one of those places that I would say, if Bigfoot is real like I think he is, this is definitely a place he could go without being detected. There are more than 70 volcanoes in Alaska. A lot of them have erupted recently, and volcanic smoke is often visible to the west of the Kenai Peninsula, so you can still see volcanic smoke there. Now, Valdez was near the epicenter of North America's strongest recorded earthquake, with a force measuring 9.2 on the Richter scale that struck on March 27th of 1964. Alaska has about 100,000 glaciers. There are more active glaciers and ice fields in Alaska than the rest of the inhabited world. The 850 square mile Malaspina Glacier in southeast Alaska is the state's largest and is the largest Piedmont glacier in North America that spans over 60 miles across. Now, a Piedmont glacier is a steep valley glacier, which has spread out, and it's got like bulb-like lobes that come out onto flat plains. So there's different kinds of glaciers. If you're not up on glacier formation, go check it out. I don't have time to get into all the different glaciers. But Exit Glacier near Seward is one of Alaska's most visited glaciers. So if you go up to Alaska, you want to go see a glacier, it's probably going to be Exit Glacier. Now, Alaska has more than 3,000 rivers and over 3 million lakes.
Man, and we thought Minnesota had a bunch.
Yeah, right? And nothing compared to Alaska. Now, the 1,000 square mile Lake Iliamna is the largest. And you and I have talked about Lake Iliamna and the Iliamna Lake Monster. Now, the 1,980 mile long Yukon River, which originates in Atlin, British Columbia, it flows through Yukon, and it's the third longest river in the U.S. Now, Sitka is the largest city in Alaska with 4,710 square miles. 1,816 of those are water. So, I mean, it's a big city, but almost 2,000 square miles of the city is water.
Yeah, it's like a third of it or more is water.
Right. And the second largest city is Juneau, and it has 3,108 square miles, but part of it is an ice field.
Yeah. Did you know? I didn't know that.
Now, this next bit comes from the Library of Congress. Now, at the time of first contact with Russians in 1741, the native people living in Alaska, they numbered in the tens of thousands. And although differing theories on the origins have been espoused, most scholars believe that these aboriginal groups came to North America across the Bering Land Bridge that at one time united Alaska and Northeast Asia. So, I have varying thoughts on that, but none of it has been proven.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, there's a lot of new research saying that the Bering Land Bridge, yes, it brought some people over, but there were already inhabitants of North America at that point. So it wasn't like it was this open expanse of nothingness without people, but they haven't proven that yet. So I don't know.
Well, you know, and there's a lot of people. In fact, I even heard Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about this just a few weeks ago, talking about the Bering Strait land bridge and, you know, the people that came across, and as they explored and expanded, they moved southward. He's talking about they went all the way down through Latin America into South America. And I'm like, that took a long time.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, a long time to get to a point where enough people were moving southward. You think about coming through Alaska, you know, down through the Yukon and into what is now the United States, you know, North America, all the way through Mexico into Latin America and on into South America, and have functioning societies there.
Right.
That would take forever.
Yeah. Yep. It would.
So
thousands of years, probably.
I kind of look at it too, like you. I'm like, weren't there already people here?
Mm-hmm.
You know, didn't they run into people? You know, as they're coming, and they started to kind of go, well, I think I like these people. Well, I'm just going to stay here. I'm not going any further.
Well, and there's debate. The Clovis people that inhabited North America, you know, when did they get here? Was it Bering Land Bridge or was it before?
Yeah.
You know, were they here when people migrated across the land bridge?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, and you know, Vikings coming from the other side. You know, I don't know. It's not documented well enough for us to really know.
Yep, exactly.
I mean, it's cool to think about and to speculate. You know, it makes you really wonder, but it opens up a lot of other questions for things.
For sure. Now, this says that Eskimos, which is one of the more numerous populations, have long inhabited the area of the Arctic and Bering Sea coast down to south central Alaska, including Kodiak. Comprising more than 20 separate groupings, their communities can be linguistically differentiated into three major categories. The Inupiaq in the northern regions of Alaska, Siberian and Central Yupik to the west, and the Sugpiaq to the south. Most have lived by the coast and hunted sea mammals, but there were extensive inland groups as well who revolved, around the caribou migrations. But in all cases, their culture and technology were highly adapted to severe winter climates. So think about it. They've been living up there long before the invention of central heat. So they had to figure out how to stay warm.
Yeah, that's right.
And you can't always be around a campfire. They got to go out and hunt and all that, so they had to stay warm. Now, living along the 1,000-mile Aleutian Island chain, the Aleut had developed a seafaring culture acclimated as well to the harsh environment, and because of their proximity to Russia, they also endured the greatest impact from the Tsarist colonization. Profound changes came with the arrival of the frontiersmen who began pressing Aleut hunters into service soon after the second Kamchatka expedition. Now, in time, the Aleut were acculturated by the Russians, and they formed the bulwark of the Orthodox mission there. Now, in southeast Alaska, the Tlingit are the largest native community. As the preeminent culture in the region, they traditionally controlled commerce between the coastal areas and native villages of the nearby Canadian interior. Practicing totem carving and other intricate crafts, they have an advanced culture with a highly developed clan structure and past skills in warfare that help them to avoid some of the more, what they call pernicious aspects of Russian conquest that afflicted the Aleut. The Haida, who immigrated in recent centuries to the southern part of Prince of Wales Island, share many elements of culture with the Tlingit and other tribes of the Pacific Northwest coast. Now, the most recent category of native peoples are the Creoles of the Russian-American era. They had a mixed ancestry that were both Russian and Native Alaskan, and they borrowed the term Creole from the colonial French experience, and the Russians applied it to the people who typically had a Russian father and a native mother. And in this way, many Native Alaskans in time had at least a modicum of Russian heritage. So, which means that they had a little bit of Russian folklore and way of looking at things as well.
Right. Yeah. All right. So, understanding, the people a little bit that were in Alaska around, the mid to late 1700s forward, it gives you a little bit of an idea of why they would have some of these legends and things like that. I mean, they were native people. They became a blended people.
Yep.
So their folklore began to expand as they included some of those Russian ideas and myths and things and back and forth. But we're talking about this Alaskan Bigfoot, and could it exist? Could it be all that different from what we know as the North American Bigfoot or Sasquatch?
Mm-hmm.
It seems to be much more of a gentle giant. This one, maybe not so much. Okay.
Right.
So our story begins in the small town of Portlock, Alaska. Now, Portlock was established in the Kenai Peninsula in the early 20th century. It was a cannery town, particularly for salmon. And it's thought to have been named after Captain Nathaniel Portlock, who was a British ship captain that sailed there in 1786. Now, in 1921, a United States post office opened in the town. How many times have we talked about that? You know, it's a town once there's a post office there.
Right, exactly.
You know, but the population was largely these Russian Aleuts. Okay, so this blended culture there. Now, after the construction of Alaska Route 1, that highway, the town, along with several others, was abandoned in favor of towns along the opposite edge of the Kenai Peninsula, which were accessible to the highway, and therefore they were accessible to mainland Alaska. And so the town of Portlock's post office officially closed sometime between 1950 and 1951. So 30 years they had a post office. So it was, I mean, there were people living there. It was like, small village. But it was officially a U.S. town only about 30 years. I guess it's still officially a town. It's just now officially a ghost town.
Right.
Okay. Now, stories began to circulate in the late 2000s that the town of Portlock had been abandoned because of attacks from a vicious Bigfoot-esque creature. There was even a reality show in 2021 called Alaskan Killer Bigfoot. Did you ever see this?
I saw it advertised, but I never watched the thing.
Yeah. And the whole show was based around this legend where they were sending out scout teams into this town to see if there was really anything left that they could repopulate the town. Now, the stories about Portlock's mass evacuation have been debunked. But we're going to talk more about that later. But you're like, hey, well, Matt, we're just getting started, and you're already debunking your own story. Trust me, it gets more interesting. I wouldn't lead you on like that.
You're stepping on the best part.
Now, the Aleutic people of Alaska's Kenai Peninsula do have folklore about a Bigfoot-like creature, and it's called the Nantinnuk. Okay, histories differentiate the Nantinnuk from the North American Sasquatch or Bigfoot because of its abilities, which many believe to be supernatural and evil in nature. Okay, so this may or may not be a Bigfoot exactly. This may be just something that is akin to Bigfoot because of its physical appearance.
Size,
Now, the earliest descriptions and accounts of the Nantinnuk can be traced back to European expedition logs in the 1700s, when Native Alaskans began inhabiting the Portlock area, which is right there around, on Port Chatham. Now, stories and encounters with this mysterious creature began occurring with increasing regularity. Now, the physical characteristics of the Nantinnuk are typically described to be similar to the North American Sasquatch. Eyewitnesses and historians describe the creature as being upwards of 8 feet tall and covered in dark fur. Sharp claws capable of ripping mammals with ease has also been identified. Now, despite the creature's, really scary looking physical characteristics, the locals identify the Nantinnuk more through its unseen traits. Strange illnesses, smells, and noises have all been recorded in the Aleutian Islands with no known explanation. And this has led many locals and elders to believe that the Nantinnuk is spiritual in nature.
Oh, yeah.
Almost like like a guardian of the North, which we've heard.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about the gray man, you know, a guardian of the mountain.
Yep.
You know, essentially unseen unless you get too close.
Like elementals.
Exactly.
Stuff.
You know, but there's a lot of people that look at Bigfoot as, you know, a guardian of the forest. You know, he needs to step it up because in North America, we rip down a forest without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, I mean, this, you know, to the natives there, this is not just a cryptid that they haven't really discovered or investigated yet. This is more of a spiritual being, which really goes along more with Native American folklore.
Right.
But the question is, could there be a Sasquatch-like cousin traipsing around southern Alaska and the Aleutians? Or is it just good old-fashioned native folklore that has taken on new life as an urban legend in the late 2000s? Well, you know, maybe it could be both.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Adam, have you been to the grocery store lately?
Regrettably, yes.
Oh my! I mean, it is unbelievable how much just the regular food that we consume every day has gotten. It's so expensive.
I can carry $200 worth of groceries with one arm.
Yeah, pretty much. And you know, we used to talk about it's cheaper to eat in than it is to eat out. Now it's pretty much a wash. And you're talking to somebody that's got 5 kids. So if we all are together and go out to eat, I'm like, you know, it's a ton. But if I go to the grocery store and buy enough food to cook a meal for all 7 of us, it's about the same.
Yep.
Okay. Everything has gotten more expensive. So why not do something that actually becomes more affordable?
Yep.
But you still get great restaurant quality food that you make yourself at home.
Right.
It sounds like a win-win to me.
I agree.
And EveryPlate does exactly that. EveryPlate delivers dependable, affordable, and delicious recipes right to your door. And you can forget about that sticker shock like when you go to the grocery store.
Yeah.
EveryPlate meals start at only $2.99 per meal. You can't go to a fast food place anymore and get a meal for $2.99.
No, and fill up on it.
It's not going to happen. So it makes sense why EveryPlate is America's best value meal kit with thousands of great reviews.
That's right. And each box contains the pre-portioned ingredients and easy-to-follow recipes ready in about 30 minutes. And just 2 nights ago, we made an EveryPlate meal. We made cheesy Southwest beef tacodillas, with a lime mayo and a pico de gallo. And tacodilla, you're going, what is that? It's basically a taco that you fry.
Yeah.
So it's cheesy. It's got the meat in there, dude. You know me and different forms of Tex-Mex. I love it.
Right.
And that was amazing. And it was cheap, and it was together in, I think it was like 28 minutes or something. We got it done. And EveryPlate is all about everyday low prices. So their pre-portioned ingredients mean that you only pay for what you need.
Right. How many times have you bought, like, I can't buy enough garlic, you know, I only need like 3 cloves and I've got to buy a daggum sleeve and it's going to go unused on my counter. Yep. I've wasted it.
Exactly. And you don't have to worry about that with EveryPlate. Everything they send you, you're going to use. And I mean, seriously, like Matt was saying, their meals end up being more affordable than like the fast food go-tos. And they're made with fresh ingredients rather than, I mean, recently I went to go get a sandwich out at some place that historically has been pretty cheap. No, I could have gone and gotten a full meal for the price of this sandwich, this 12-inch long sandwich that I got. You know, they've only got so much there. Well, EveryPlate has rotating menu. They have 26 weekly recipe options, so you can choose pretty much anything you want for that week. They got it. If you want to join Matt and I and our families in getting inexpensive home-cooked meals, then all you got to do is join EveryPlate today and pay only $2.99 per meal, plus get 50% off your first box for all box sizes. And you can get this deal by going to everyplate.com/podcast and enter our code Graveyard299.
Yeah, that code is Graveyard299. GRAVEYARD299 at everyplate.com/podcast, and you get $2.99 per meal plus 50% off your first box. You cannot beat this deal. So let's talk about a lady named Sally Ash. Now, in an article written by Darren Smith, published in 2022, the author describes his fascination with Bigfoot and his desire to learn more about the mysterious Sasquatch creature that turned a small cannery village into a ghost town in the late 1940s. Now, Sally Ash is a Supiak of Russian Aleut descent. She has lived in Nanwalek, Alaska for most of her life, and she continues to speak her native language of, God, don't let me screw this up, Sukstum. Okay? Sukstum. That's the native language. Sally's mother was born in Dogfish Bay, which is near Port Chatham. And she says, our people were nomadic. We went by the seasons. Whatever was in season, they would move from one place to another. They went through Port Chatham, Dogfish Bay, Seldovia, Homer, even to Kodiak. But she says Portlock was always kind of a creepy place. And she said they would tell us, don't go out on a foggy day. That's when he's walking around. You could run into him, and you never know what he might do. Now, the he that she's talking about is their local form of Sasquatch. Okay, the Nantinnuk.
Yeah.
Now, just remember, the Nantinnuk is not your typical everyday Sasquatch brute. You know, they believe that he's more of a supernatural being. But Sally says, I think he's part human. He lived with people, and then he didn't want to be around them anymore, so he moved to the forest, away from everybody.
So that's going to be me in 30 years.
That's right. Yeah. She says he started growing hair, and then he looked like Bigfoot. Scary.
Yeah.
And Sally says, my uncles, grandfathers, they all talked about him. They'd tell us they live far away from people. They do not mix with people. Okay? So we've definitely got a legendary creature. Okay? We've got folklore, we've got stories that were passed down about this creature. So we know, okay, well, that part's not made up. That part wasn't fabricated. So what was debunked? You know, what part of this was debunked? It sounds like we've got plenty of at least legends that describe that there, at some point, people believed and maybe still believe that there was a creature there.
Yeah.
That they called the Nantinnuk. So Sally told this story to Darren Smith during a phone interview. Okay? She says, my brother went up to the lake and he was tying off his skiff. He started smelling something really bad in the bushes. So he opened the bushes and he started moving the branches. And he said something was going on. He looked in there and there was a man with his hands in the she says in the back way, like turned around. So I don't know, like, I guess like this. If I'm holding up my hands, like if I was going to walk like a caveman, and I I kind of drug my hands on the ground, you know.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I assume she's talking about. She says, so he and our cousin took off running. They said it looked like a man, but he was all hairy and he was really scary looking. He said her brother said he wasn't sure if it was a Bigfoot, but he said there was this horrible smell. Okay. And the smell is something that is commonly reported, you know, around the Nanticoke.
Even with the Sasquatch from the continental U.S., it gets a odd smell or a rank smell when it's near.
Well, I mean, you think about it. If you go out in the woods for a couple years and you don't shower and you let your hair grow, you know, you're gonna smell too.
Dude, I camped on an island in Percy Priest Lake for a week. Mm-hmm. I probably smelled like this Bigfoot by the end of the week.
It's funny as you go nose blind. You don't smell yourself.
Right.
Somebody shows up and go, "Hey, Adam, woo, Lord of mercy, you are ripe, son."
That's an evolutionary adaptation so you don't drive yourself insane.
That's right. Yes. You're just walking around going, I stink. Oh, I got to tell you this story on Amanda. She'll shoot me for this. She may not hear this. Before I'm coming out to record, okay, she gets home from work and she goes, you know what I've noticed? She's like, I have BO. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? She's like, I've never had BO in my life. And now I have BO. She's talking about, she was like, I don't have to wear deodorant because I don't stink. Okay. But apparently now she thinks she does. I'm like, well, I don't smell you walking around in here.
Man, she's like, missed your opportunity. Yeah. You should have said, you just thought you didn't. And just mess with her.
Well, it's kind of funny. She started taking a new supplement about a week or so ago, and she's kind of thinking that that's what's done it. You know, that it's causing her to be a little malodorous.
Yep. Well, I know I was taking a supplement that had a lot of garlic in it.
Yeah.
And my smell changed when I sweat. I could smell garlic, and I'm like, what the heck is going? And then I realized it was that supplement, so I changed supplements.
But you keep wondering why people start going, is there an Italian restaurant around here?
Yeah.
You know?
I want breadsticks when you come around.
People start coming up wiping bread on you. Man, your sweat's pretty good, man.
Yep. I wondered why this kid was licking me at the gym. He grabbed my arm and started licking my arm. And I'm like, what? Garlic bread.
You could be Fazoli's unofficial mascot, you know?
Yeah, right.
Just stand out front, let people see.
Garlic butter man. Yeah.
But so I mean, when I read that, I thought, man, it's funny. We had this conversation tonight.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, but she's not a Bigfoot. I can tell you that. But Sally goes on to talk about the Nanticoke and says, he's old, he's tall, he's really strong, and he's hairy. And he lives in the woods, and you can tell when he's getting close. You can smell him. She says, my mom used to talk about it a lot. She'd tell stories of the Bigfoot, like in the dogfish area. Her and her brother would talk about how Bigfoot was around, and they were getting too close to him, and that they would be nice. Okay. They would respect him. They would keep their distance. They live with him, but just not so close. She said he moved around a lot and he was very, very quick. So you really didn't want to get too close, at least not close enough where you could piss him off, because you weren't going to outrun him. You know, that was understood.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, just with any native North American folklore, there is always a respect for even the thing that you don't understand, maybe even more so It's like, if I don't understand it, I may fear it, but do I fear it because I don't understand it? I'm going to respect it because chances are it's older than me.
Oh, yeah,
and it's been here a lot longer, and it doesn't deserve, my disrespect. And that's really cool because I don't think in the modern times we think about things that way.
No.
Where it's
unfortunately, we don't.
The things that we're afraid of, the things that we don't understand, we don't by default respect them. I think it's opposite.
Yeah, we've got to where we make fun of it. If we don't understand it, we make fun of it.
Make fun of it and disrespect it because we don't understand it. But you know what? As we've seen talking about different places that were haunted in different events, especially like witch trials and werewolves and vampires, that is a real European thing.
Yeah.
And they brought it with them when they came here.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it is a cool aspect if you really start digging into native North American folklore, that they all, even a Wendigo, okay, they respect the Wendigo. It doesn't mean that they're kind to it. They just, they understand we don't want to mess with this thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's out there. So you respect that it's out there, and you don't go out there at the times when you're in its territory.
Right.
That's why I said, you swim out in the ocean with the sharks, you're in their house.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Not top of the food chain anymore.
Exactly. You jump on a surfboard, you're an hors d'oeuvre. So sightings are not well documented. Okay. I mean, there's just not, you're not going to go. In fact, if you do even a decent dive on a Google search, you're going to get mostly stuff about this television show.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But just the routine sightings and everything, they're not tracked, or they're all attributed to just Bigfoot sightings. Like if you go to the websites that track Bigfoot reports, Alaska's on there, and there's really not a lot of delineation between the two. Okay. But the more we get into this, the more it sounds like it's a different creature altogether.
Yeah.
But people like Sally Ash, who grew up and live around Port Chatham, know the name Nanticoke and treat it with respect that their elders showed. But did the Nanticoke terrorize the town of Portlock and force the residents to leave?
I would like to believe so.
Yeah, you want to, right? You want to believe it. So here's where this comes from. In the 1920s, stories started popping up around the Kenai Peninsula about weird happenings in Port Chatham. There were these wild stories of a creature said to walk on 2 feet, haunting the nearby chromium mining camp. I've never heard of a chromium mine. It makes sense, but I've never thought of it.
Yeah. You don't hear about it often.
People mining chromium. You know?
Yeah, you don't hear about it often, and every time I think of chromium, I think of chromium picolinate. That was a big supplement like 15 years ago. Everybody was like, you need to take chromium picolinate. It'll help with da-da-da-da-da.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, and so I can't hear chromium without thinking of that. But
yeah. But in this area, there were reports of things like trees being completely ripped out of the ground, turned upside down, and then thrust back into the ground with their roots facing up in the air. So you start to, if you see something like that, you think, whatever did this, I wouldn't mess with an axe handle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't want to be anywhere near it.
Then there was a report of a mysterious death in 1931. A logger named Andrew Camluck. It appeared that he had been hit over the head with a huge piece of logging equipment, something that a man couldn't have lifted, much less swung.
Mm-hmm.
When they found his body, there was blood on the crane, and he was a good 10 feet from it. It looked as if someone or something picked it up, bonked him over the head, and tossed the heavy piece of equipment aside. nothing that a regular human would be able to do.
Right. Right.
Now, in the 1940s, the events really started to get scary. It said that over the next 20 years, that up to 36 grossly mangled bodies had turned up along trails, rivers, as well as floating out in the bay.
Oh, wow.
These bodies were said to be completely mutilated and essentially torn to shreds, not resembling anything that a bear or a wolf could or would do. So cannery workers refused to come to work one season and were begged to return the following season with promises of armed guards protecting the camp around the clock.
Huh.
Now, hunters who were tracking moose would occasionally come across these giant man-like tracks that were over 18 inches in length.
Dang.
Now, I wear a size 14 shoe.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you saw my footprint out there, you'd go, man, there's a dude running around here with some big feet.
Mm-hmm.
18, you begin to wonder, man, there's a big dude wandering around in here with really big feet.
Yeah, there's Shaq running around out there.
Yeah. I mean, it is a Shaquille O'Neal.
Yep. Yeah, see, I'm a size 12.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you got bigger feet than me. I can't picture 18-inch feet.
Yeah.
On a human. Now, again, Shaquille O'Neal, but I've never seen Shaq's feet, and I would like to keep it that way. But
I've got a pair of Crocs that I use as house shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Of course you do.
I don't wear them out. I'll tell you why. I don't wear them out.
Because they're Crocs?
Because they're Crocs, but they're lined Crocs.
Oh,
I don't like regular Crocs. My feet don't feel good in them. I don't like them. But I had this cheap, like dollar store, non-Crocs that had the lining in them. They were great. And I wore them around in the wintertime or whatever. If I'm just tooling around the house, I could just slip them on and they were comfortable.
Yep.
So I got these for Christmas, but these Crocs are like the lining in them is like, leopard skin. Okay.
Oh yeah.
And the little thing around the back is like a zebra stripe, they're just ridiculous, but they're comfortable. They're also a size 15 because I got to size up to make up for the lining. Yeah. These things are enormous. Okay. They look like snowshoes. Okay. At a size 15. And these footprints are bigger than that.
Yep.
I'm telling you, if you saw my Crocs laying on the floor, you're like, Jesus, who wears these?
Yep. And you're just hoping some grandma doesn't throw that chancla at you from across the room.
That's right.
And knock your butt out.
Now, there was one report that said while closing in on a moose, there were signs of a struggle where the grass had been matted down, and then only the deep tracks of a man-like animal departing toward the high fog-shroud mountains were left. So, they're seeing, there's essentially murders, with these, all these different people. They're finding them over the course of about 20 years. So everybody's getting a little uptight. Well, in 1949, they decided that enough's enough. The locals grew sick and tired of living in fear of this terrorizing Sasquatch. So overnight, they fled the town completely, leaving behind all their possessions, thus making the town of Portlock an instant ghost town.
Yeah.
Now, really cool story. I mean, it is a cool story, and like Adam, I want it to be true.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They definitely present it in this television show like it's true. Okay. But that story stems from a 2009 interview with Melania Keel, who is a cousin of Sally Ash, the lady we've been talking about. And this interview appeared in the Homer Tribune. And Sally actually served as Melania's translator during the interview. So Sally was there. So Sally is quoted as saying, "My cousin Melania was being interviewed and we were sitting with her. Melania kind of made up a story because she was getting tired of people asking if this story was true. So she made up this story of how Bigfoot was killing people. It wasn't true. Everybody knows that, but it was not our place to say anything. We all knew, but we just couldn't stop her. We were brought up in a way where you can't tell your elders that they are wrong."
Right.
And that was her story. And it says, and, you know, in Darren's article, it says, you know, Sally kind of laughs at this because they knew it. They knew it wasn't real. So she says, there was me and my sisters and my cousins, and we all just sat there. We couldn't tell her. Don't say that, Melania, because she might get mad at us.
Yeah.
We were younger than her, and we were not allowed in front of her to say anything like that. So Melania knew that we knew her story was made up, and we all just had a big laugh about it. They didn't expect it to turn into what it was. You know, as she said, you know, she was a local, and she was just tired of answering the same questions over and over and over. So she made up this story about all the people getting killed.
Just having fun with it.
Now, the town of Portlock, you know, it was abandoned. That's real. That's not made up. It's the reason why it was abandoned.
Right.
It is what was made up. Okay. The fact that the Nanticoke went on this killing rampage for 20 years and eventually frightened all these people to leave, that's what's made up. That's what was debunked. Because when they figured out, oh, she made this story up.
Made a fool out of all of us.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a good story. But it doesn't mean that the Nanticoke didn't exist.
Right.
I mean, you got, you know, decades and even centuries of legends about this creature. But it would be the equivalent of me saying, I'm going to interview with Newsweek, and I'm going to say, I'm moving out of my home because a Bigfoot is living in a cave behind my house.
Right.
And he comes to my house every night, and he's just terrorizing my family, and I'm leaving.
Yep.
And it's not true. Next thing you know, 20 years later, they're making a television show about my house that nobody will move into because they're terrified that a Bigfoot's going to come. I just made it up. Now,
wonder if you could get an insurance claim for that. Do you have Bigfoot insurance?
I do not have Bigfoot insurance.
You need to look into that.
You know,
living there in Tennessee, you might need to get.
It's hard enough to get flood insurance up here. Imagine when I go and say,
trying to get Squatch coverage.
You know, yeah. I'm not here about the flood insurance this time.
Yeah.
You know, let's talk about Bigfoot insurance.
Yeah. Yep.
What can you do for me? Yeah.
Yeah. Did I tell you about trying to get insurance on the house? I was talking to an insurance agent about getting like expanded fire protection. Yeah. And she was like, you really don't need expanded fire protection. But we carry flood insurance. And I just kind of said, well, that's nice, but I don't know how to start a flood. She didn't find it funny.
I bet she didn't. Oh my God. Anyway, we got off on another one.
Another derailment.
But anyway, Sally, she went on to say that the real reason people left Port Chatham and Portlock in particular, it was a practical move. She said people would see the Nanticoke. I mean, there were reports and sightings, but that wasn't why they left. Remember, they respected it. They stayed away from it, and it lived away from people. So they weren't afraid of it. They just stayed away from it. But the people began to move to Soldovia and Nanwalek because of the economy and the schools and the church, but there really wasn't anybody being killed. And the timing, just like in the original story, coincided with the extension of Alaska Highway Route 1 down the Kenai Peninsula and eventually to Homer, diverting much of the traffic to the road system. So if you stayed in Portlock, you were kind of cut off.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But Sally goes on to say that she believes Melania saw the changes in and around Port Chatham, people leaving, buildings left empty and rotting. It no longer looked like the place where she grew up. And Sally feels like that she was grieving and still in pain for the lost old way that she grew up with compared to how it became.
Yeah.
And Sally says, I think she was doing this like, please do not disrespect the part of the world that was her childhood. So she made up this story.
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
Yeah. So the Nanticoke didn't kill anyone, and it wasn't the reason that Portlock was abandoned, but the people that lived there understood that he was out there and respectfully kept their distance.
Yep.
So
that's the best way, I think, to handle stuff like that you don't understand and are a little fearful of.
Mm-hmm.
You know, instead of making fun of it and immediately going, nah, that's BS, man. Y'all are dumb for believing that antiquated way of thinking. Y'all dumb. Respect it, because some of this stuff, whether this or not, some of that stuff is legit. And you go screwing around, making fun of it, disrespecting it, all that stuff, it'll come back and bite you.
Well, yeah. And one thing I took away from, this research and when I got into this, I realized I can go a different direction than what we traditionally do with a cryptid story. Usually I have a list full of different sightings over a period of time. I didn't really have that for this, but what we do have is a strong history of legends and reported sightings of a creature that just wanted to be left alone.
Mm-hmm.
That lived in this area, and people knew it was there and just left it alone. They didn't go looking for it. They didn't go hunting it. They didn't want to study it. They understood and they respected it, but they viewed it as it's very real. So this is what we do, so a creature that to them was very real gets attached to a story that is completely fabricated. But how many times have we seen that before?
Right.
This person is just good enough to come out and go, yeah, I made it up. I made it up. What are you going to do? I didn't make any money off of it. I just wanted y'all to kind of leave because you don't want to go out there and disturb this thing. It's not out there for you to go hunting for. You can do that down in the continental U.S., but don't come up here and do it.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Respect the land, respect this supernatural being, and respect us enough to stay out. And I think that's what it is. And it's a very unique take on what we typically see when we talk about cryptids. But
I like it.
But what do you guys think? I mean, is there a chance that there is another Bigfoot-like cryptid that, is known to southern Alaska and the area around Port Chatham and the Aleutian Islands? It's not violent. It just wants to be away from people. Could this have been, a story that grew from maybe a person that did exactly that just kind of said, I'm going to separate myself from society and I'm going to live out here off the land. And his hair grew and he was kind of a wild man and he just wanted to be left alone. So people left him alone. And now there was the story about the Nanticoke. Let us know. The best place to do that is in our Facebook group. And we talk about it a lot, but it is really it is really a good environment for people to come in and share some opinions and personal experiences and things like that. No one's going to make fun of you. We just want to hear those really great stories. Okay. So you jump in there, and share your thoughts on what we talk about on the show or something that happened to you as a child or last week or whatever. And don't forget to slide over to our website, which is graveyardpodcast.com. And there you can find links to purchase Graveyard Tales merchandise. You can listen to the show, and that's where you can become a patron. And we appreciate everyone who has donated to the show. It means the world to Adam and I, and it helps us keep the show going. It's allowed us to put out more material than we would have originally. It keeps our equipment in working order, so we thank you. And it's a great time to go and check out our side quest. I think as of now, we're like on episode 30 now. So, there's a bunch to catch up on, and there's tons of back Patreon bonus episodes. So go check it out. Don't forget to rate and review us on iTunes. I know we sound like we beat that dead horse, but it really does help the show. Even if you just put, these two guys are goons, 5 stars.
Yep.
It helps people to find the show. So it brings us up the charts, and it makes it easier for people to find. So until next time, we'll save you a seat in the graveyard.
See you soon.